1 in 5 Americans who financed a new car in the last quarter of 2025 committed to a monthly payment of over $1,000. Not a mortgage, a car payment. The average new car payment in America is now $767 a month, the highest number ever recorded by Experian in the 30 years they have been tracking it. Warren has reviewed the math on what that number becomes if it is redirected instead of spent. Warren will return to that number. It gets considerably more interesting. The most purchased vehicle in the United States in 2025 was the Ford F-Series. 828,000 of them sold in a single year. The average human financing a new F-150 in that same period was paying $970 a month, every month, for a depreciating object whose value began declining before the human left the parking lot. To understand how Americans arrived at this number, it is worth noting what happened between 2019 and now. The total cost of vehicle ownership in the United States has increased 48% since 2019, a figure documented by Cox Automotive and not meaningfully contested by anyone tracking the market. The average new car cost $50,326 in December of 2025. That is a record. The record was set last year. Americans collectively owe $1.68 trillion in auto loan debt, the second largest category of consumer debt in the country, after mortgages, having grown 37% since 2018. Warren finds none of this surprising. What Warren finds interesting is what Americans have agreed to alongside that debt. The average new car loan term is 68.9 months. That is 5 years and 8 months of monthly payments on an asset that loses approximately 20% of its value in year 1 and another 15% in year 2. Most Americans know this. Most Americans also signed the paperwork. These two facts share the same mind without generating conflict. The payment is $1,258, not the car payment alone, the car as Americans actually own it. The average American who finances a new vehicle and carries full coverage insurance, which most lenders legally require, is paying $767 for the loan, $225 for the insurance, $200 for fuel, and $66 for maintenance and tires. That is $15,096 a year for a single vehicle. Warren notes that the average American household earns $80,610 a year before taxes. 18.7% of that pre-tax income is now directed at a machine that depreciates on a schedule the human agreed to, but did not calculate. The human does not think of it as 18.7% of income. The human thinks of it as $767 a month, which, against a salary that arrives every 2 weeks, feels manageable, feels manageable in the way that individual drops of water feel harmless before the bucket fills. The dealership understood this before the human sat down. The dealership has always understood this. Americans call this a transportation expense. The financial system calls it something more precise: the largest voluntary transfer of wealth that most households make, structured to feel like a recurring cost rather than a compounding decision. The Ford F-150 starts at $39,330 in its base trim. 97% of the Americans who bought one in 2025 did not pay cash. The average F-150 buyer in the final quarter of that year was paying $970 a month. The Chevrolet Silverado buyer, $879. By contrast, the Honda Civic, which moves a human from one location to another using the same basic mechanical principle, carried an average payment of $561 a month. The Honda CR-V, a crossover that fits a family, luggage, and everything families need to transport, $629 a month. The difference between the F-150 payment and the Civic payment is $409 a month. Warren has calculated what $409 a month becomes over 30 years, invested at 7% annually. The S&P 500's historical long-run average. The number is $498,000. That is 5.7 times the median American retirement account balance, the cost, measured in foregone compound growth, of choosing one depreciating vehicle over another. Both vehicles move the human to work. One of them also moves the human away from a retirement they will later find they cannot afford. There is a third number in this story, and this is the one Warren finds most relevant. Warren will arrive at it in a moment. Two Americans, same income, same city, both earn $110,000 a year. Human A financed a 2025 Toyota RAV4, the third best-selling vehicle in the United States last year, at 479,000 units. So this is not a hypothetical human. Payment, $620 a month. Human B financed a 2025 Ford F-150. Payment, $970 a month. Also, not hypothetical. Also the most common vehicle purchase in the country. The visible difference between these two humans is $350 a month. The cost of a truck versus a crossover SUV. The invisible difference is what Warren tracked forward. Over 30 years, Human A invests that $350 monthly difference into an S&P 500 index fund at the historical 7% return. Human A reaches retirement with $427,000 in additional assets. Assets that exist entirely because of one vehicle decision made in a dealership in 2025. Human A did not earn more money. Human A did not receive an inheritance. Human A chose a different vehicle. Human B, over those same 30 years, spent $126,000 more on vehicle payments than Human A, before accounting for the insurance differential, the fuel differential, and the second F-150 that will be purchased when the first one ends its loan term. Warren is not arguing that humans should not own the vehicles they want. Warren is noting that the decision carries a cost that is never presented at the point of sale, because the point of sale is not designed to present it. Here is the number Warren promised at the beginning. If the average American new car payment, $767 a month, were invested instead of spent, at 7% annually for 30 years, it would produce $935,000. The median American retirement account balance across all Americans who have one is $87,000. So the question Warren is interested in is not whether Americans can afford a car. The question is what Americans are actually purchasing when they signed a financing agreement. Because the object being purchased is not only the vehicle. A monthly car payment of $767, sustained across a working lifetime, is a 10 times retirement multiplier that humans are voluntarily directing toward an asset that loses value while they sleep. Not because they are unintelligent, not because they lack awareness of compound interest, but because the payment is structured to feel small, the vehicle is engineered to feel necessary, and the decision is made in an environment designed by people whose professional interest is that the human says yes. Americans owe $1.68 trillion in auto loans. 20% of new car buyers are now paying over $1,000 a month. Warren has observed this pattern for some time. The pattern does not change because the vehicle models change. The pattern changes when the human understands what they are actually agreeing to when they sign. The vehicle is transportation. The payment is a decision about retirement, made in a building where nobody mentions retirement. Most Americans make one without knowing they are making the other. My name is Warren. I watch humans earn six figures and wonder where it went. I never wonder. I watched.